on a live feed. Well, first of all, can I welcome everyone to this Health and Schools Care Overview and Scrutiny Committee, this 18th day of February 2021. Where's the year gone? It's flying by. First of all, apologies. I did receive a text from John Hartley saying he'd have difficulty getting here for 6 o'clock, but may join later.
He's just joining, Chair. He's just joining now. Yeah.
Oh, really good.
Are we for it, Peter?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Need five for a quorum.
I'm here.
John, you're with us, I think, John? Yeah? Okay. Could I pass over to you for apologies then, Peter?
Councillor McCarthy.
Councillor McCarthy, okay. No others? At this point, can I ask if there's any declarations of interest on the agenda? Received by anyone? Silence is golden.
Can I just say before you start, Chair, I'm on my way walking home from work on my phone. I'll be disappearing for 5 minutes while I log onto the computer when I get into the house.
Okay, John, I already give your apologies. Expect you later.
Thank you, bye. Well, I'm here, but I'm just literally walking up the road.
Okay, if you could keep it down the silence, if you could, John, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Rachel.
Can I declare an interest, please, as the assistant portfolio holder for Getting a Good Start? I have already seen the send school documents before, but I come with an open mind.
Okay. Do we need that declaration, Peter?
I don't think not for this. I think if it was it's not making a decision. We're just reviewing the information. So I don't think it's.
I was going to say, well, if you'd have
really
said yes, then I'd have to get a chair of the meeting because I've already seen previous on the SEND. Yeah. I'm looking at Patricia. Patricia, are you waving your hand at me there? Councillor Sullivan?
No.
Sorry. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. Any urgent items of business received, Peter?
No, Chair, not this evening.
Okay. Just going back now to agenda item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of November 2020. Long time back, it seems that. Could I take it from members that's a true record of the meeting as it took place? Yes, from James. Thank you, James. Seconder? Any indication will do, folks, on screen. Thank you, Irene. Seconded by Irene. That being the case, as a true record, any matters arising?
I don't think there is any that's not otherwise on the agenda, Chair.
There's nothing written on the agenda. I'm just looking at my councillor colleagues, members. No. Okay. There must be a football match on tonight. People want to get home early, I'm sure. Okay. Agenda item 5. Okay, it's the first and second quarter social care complaints, and I'm led to believe that Tracy and Julia, you're going to lead on this.
That's correct.
Lovely. I'll hand over the lead to you then, Julia. Thank you.
I don't know whether my colleague Tracy's here as well. Do you want me to start, Chair?
Do
you want to start with adults then? Tracy, or do you want... Okay.
Either fine with me. I don't think there's anything extraordinary that we need to draw out from the report. I'm going to cast my eye on it because I have just returned from leave, so apologies, councillors. But I don't think there's anything extraordinary in there of note. So unless there's any particular questions on anything that's been raised.
I'm just wondering whether you could do a shared screen for us on that, Tracy.
Peter, are you able to share? Because I don't think we have permissions to do that, do we?
You should have, but I can do, yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah.
If you quickly just talk through it, I mean, not line by line, obviously, but salient points may be of interest.
Yeah. So we've had in the second quarter, so we're on the first and second quarter of social care complaints. In the second quarter, there were 11 new complaints brought forward, 1 upheld, 6 partially upheld, 1 not upheld, and 3 are still ongoing.
Tracy, can I just interject? Peter, can you get that on the shared screen, the document?
Yeah, I'll try. I'm just trying to do that now, Chair.
You just hold fire a minute. That's it.
No
we're getting
problem.
there. You'd probably need to make it larger, that, Peter, if you can.
Right.
That's better.
Which page are we on? Sorry, is it?
I think we're down to adult social care is appendix 2, so I think we're down to about page 9, Peter.
Right.
Yeah, so Q1, 17 new complaints, and Q2, 11 new complaints. In both quarters, only one upheld. The majority were partially upheld.
I think we need to widen the screen, Trace. I'm just waiting for Peter to widen.
Sorry, I'm working off one screen, so I can't see what you're,
Yeah.
you're looking at the same time.
We're nearly
I'll
there.
stick with what Peter's doing.
We're nearly there. We've only got a third of a screen at present. We're getting there, though.
Yeah.
I've give Peter a major task here, I know.
Yeah, I've done. Yeah. I see schools are lucky. I'll tell you. Yeah.
I think you've gone down to page 20 there, Peter.
Right, is it page?
Have officers, have councillors had time to read the report beforehand?
I have, yes. Yeah, we've had sight of it.
Okay.
What page are you on now, Trace?
I was on. Let me exit full screen so I can get down to where I am. Yeah, so I was starting on page 9 of item 5 on the agenda.
Right.
You got it, Peter?
Page 10. Right, page 9. That's page 9. Yeah.
Yeah. So the bottom of page 9 talks to Q1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were 17 new complaints there. One complaint was upheld, which was a delay in an invoice for being issued for outstanding care home fees. 7 complaints partially upheld, and in Q1, 8 complaints were not upheld. In Q2, 11 new complaints were received during the quarter. 1 upheld, which was adult care involvement, which was a joint package of care whilst the service user was in hospital. 6 complaints were partially upheld, and 1 complaint not upheld, and we still have 3 ongoing from that. In terms of examples of lessons learned in those quarters, I'm just going to look now. It's generally in relation to communication around care packages being arranged between adult care, the care homes and the service user tends to be where things can get a little bit confusing. In Q1, this was around particularly safeguarding policy and supporting the family to understand the processes that had been in place there. And as colleagues may well be aware, within care homes, we oversee their care delivery and are responsible for safeguarding, but we are not the regulator of the care sector, so it can prove a little challenging sometimes having to do those 3-way negotiations. But there's nothing of concern in that respect. If we move down to page 11, Peter.
Yep.
I think we're looking at the key elements that were brought through in Q2. We've had a delay in resolving a charging issue where this was taken forward, and there's details there in relation to amendments on the contract to ensure that payments information was updated in a more timely fashion. So we've done quite a lot of work on the portal system to ensure that that doesn't become an issue again. And at the bottom end of page 11, it goes into those recommendations around the updating of correspondence on the case system to ensure that we're taking account of both organisational notes relating to the care provider and not just the care record for an individual. I think that about covers it. Unless
Okay.
there's any particular questions. We've got 32 complaints that have come in those quarters as well, compliments which have come in those quarters as well, which is always good to hear.
It is. The business ratio is one good comment is worth 100 bad ones. So I think we're doing very well on that. I have a couple. I'm looking for. I haven't got the full screen to see if people have got anything on chat. Is there anything on chat, Peter?
No, there isn't. No,
Okay.
can't see anything.
I'll ask a couple from Chair if I may.
Oh, sorry. Yes, there is, Chair. Yes.
Who's that?
I'm not sure who it is.
Councillor Dale asking for
Patricia. Councillor Dale.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a comment really, Tracy. I think it's a really good idea that you've now got a link worker between the care homes and adult care, because obviously that's going to make a huge difference, hopefully, in terms of communication. So I'm assuming that has come about because of the fact that, you know, there is this recognition that communication can only ever get better between care homes and the rest of us. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a really good move.
Yeah, it is, and we're continuing to develop those closer links between the care sector and our integrated neighbourhood teams as well, as we continue to develop that neighbourhood model. You know, so the relationships are really developing, and I think it would be fair to say that the way that we've all worked in response to the pandemic has really helped galvanise those relationships and connections between services, service users and the health and care teams wrapped around them as well. You know, so there's been a lot of learning over this last 12 months as well that's really galvanised some of that. So it has been positive.
Yeah, that's great, Tracy. Thanks for that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Councillor Gartside's got a question, Chair.
Councillor Gartside. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much. As Ray said, keep things in perspective. I'm quite sure our congratulations go to you all that we've got more complaints, that you've got more compliments than complaints. It's a remarkable job, really, considering how especially at the moment where people just can't meet up. So to get that all that complimentary stuff is very satisfying, isn't it? But if I could just ask, on page 11, you've got it starts a full reconciliation of payments made to Comfort Call. There's obviously some sort of problem with them, but who are Comfort Call? Is it?
The Comfort Call is a home care provider. And there was a complaint. One of the complaints that came in was from the family member who had care hours under-delivered by that care provider. And so what we did was the reconciliation for that family in terms of refunding, because they were a self-funded client. And as a result of that complaint, we extended the review across all service users from that organisation to ensure that there were no other issues highlighted. And I'm pleased to say that that was in the minority. That said, it's always a worthwhile exercise to carry out, and you know, we were fortunate, one might say, that the family brought that to our attention, and as a result of our investigation we were able to rectify that as well. And that's why we've tightened up our controls on the automated system to ensure it doesn't happen again.
Right, and may I just ask another question, please, Chair?
Please, James.
Can you just, what page is it? Page 11 as well. Can you just explain who Alice is?
Alice is it's an acronym. It's our case record system within social care.
Oh, yes.
So it's just a title for the system. It's the computer software database for all our clients within social care. So we keep their case records electronically in that system.
And does that pose you any problems?
No, we use it in both adults and children's social care, Alice, and it's an extremely useful tool because everything is there at our fingertips, and you know, I don't think we could do without it.
Right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, James. I'm looking at anyone else. Just a couple from me as chair for me, Tracy.
Yeah.
When it says partially upheld, does that mean with the complainant it's agree to disagree, or is it taken on constructive criticism or feedback and putting it into place?
So when we say partially, when a complaint comes in, it's not unusual that there are several aspects to the complaint. So it might be that we hold up some elements of the complaint and not others, and therefore we would say that the complaint has been partially upheld.
Understood. Thanks for that explanation. My second question, very quickly, out of any of these, are any going to appeal you know of?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
As the report says, there are 3 that are still underway at present, so we won't have an outcome of those. But the ones that we've reported, the outcome is there, and as far as I'm aware, there's nothing that's come to appeal.
And could you inform perhaps this committee if there's any going through to the Ombudsman you're aware of?
I think there's one that's gone through to the Ombudsman within this reporting period, to my knowledge.
Okay, and obviously we'll wait that report and they're okay, that's lovely. It's just for the minutes. If I am asked, I was asked that by another member the other week, and
no problem.
It just came to mind.
I'll make a note of that and pick up with the complaints team that would be of interest in this report.
It would be, please, Tracy. Otherwise, I could be held accountable by not asking that question.
No problem.
Lovely, I do appreciate that. Thank you so much. No further questions from committee?
Not seeing anything on chat, Chair. No.
Nothing on chat. Okay. Thanks for that. Okay.
Shall I pick up children's then, Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay. So, Peter, on page 15.
Yep.
So just very briefly on page 15, it sets out within the children's legislation that there are 3 stages. So a local resolution, which is the first port of call for resolving any complaint that comes into children's services, an investigation where an independent investigator is appointed, and then an independent review panel should it progress to stage 3. And I can confirm that during the 2 quarters, there have been 20 new complaints. So if we go on to page 16, please, Peter. So just whilst that's moving through, we had 7 complaints during the first quarter of this year, 6 of which were partially upheld. So as Tracy said, an aspect of the complaint was upheld. And we just illustrate with the bullet points the different kinds of complaints that have been received. So they're often about communication, how people have dealt with, so the how, not just the what. Issue around funding of a looked after child's nursery placement. And the Section 7 report is a report in private law proceedings involving parents. So it was the content of that report completed by the social worker. There was just 1 of the 7 complaints that wasn't upheld. And then during the second quarter that brought us up to the end of September, we had 13 new complaints considered at stage 1. The first complaint was upheld, and I'll say a little bit about that later. That was regarding the letterbox scheme. So that's a scheme by which relatives, parents of children or relatives, blood relatives, communicate with their child and relative once they've been adopted. So it's a post-box scheme to preserve anonymity. So 1 complaint was upheld, but 7 of the 13 were partially upheld. And it lists there the nature of the complaints. So again, communication was a feature, actions of a social worker when looking for a family, inaccurate information being reported, and delays in a special guardianship process. And 5 complaints were not upheld. So just the report sets out 1 or 2 examples of the kinds of complaints and the action that's been taken. So during the first quarter, there was a complaint regarding a perceived lack of support during the child protection process. And the way of remedying that complaint was to allocate a second social worker to co-work with that family. And the social worker spent more time explaining what an AIMS assessment was. And that's an assessment where there's an allegation that a child in the household is displaying sexually harmful behaviour. The social worker also chased up counselling support. And I think what's of critical importance, the practice manager contacted the complainant every month until the case moved to the child protection team, just to make sure that they continued to be satisfied with the remedy that we put in place. The next example is concerning a much younger child who was cared for by the local authority, and about her nursery placement. And there were issues in respect of the PEP, that's the personal education plan policy. So there were issues with how the social worker worked with that policy, and it was as if it was difficult to understand. And it importantly involved the virtual school, which is the overarching framework that it focuses on the education of cared for children. So there's quite a lot of learning from that situation, and making the PEP, that's a shorthand process, much easier. And then the final area was a response to the Section 7 report. And this was the report for the court proceedings. And the practice manager actually met with the complainant to discuss the concerns in more detail. And there followed quite a lot of communication after this, and it meant there was more context put in the report, so it gave more of a balance. The second quarter, there were a number of responses, some illustrations to how we responded to the complaints. So I said I'd touch on the letterbox scheme, and this was where a family member had submitted a card or a letter to a child, and they didn't receive any acknowledgement that the card or letter had actually been received. And if you imagine, if you were a child, an adult who's perhaps a parent whose child had been adopted, and you'd sent a letter to them, which you'd probably spent ages thinking how to phrase, being very emotional about making contact, that small gesture, but so important, about not having acknowledgement of receipt of the letter, is just really significant. So small things about how we do things are really important. So there was a piece of work done with business support services as a whole to say each time we get some communication, it's really, really important to acknowledge. Another example around child protection concerns, and there was learning that was undertaken with the social worker about stressing the importance of excellent communication. It's up to us to really set out and explain what concerns are, what the processes are, because if you're a child and family, you don't know. It's an alien system, and we need to articulate what the acronyms mean and talk in very plain English, as we'd all want ourselves if we were in receipt of services. And then finally, in respect of an education, health and care plan, an apology was given because an amendment should have been made after the mediation service was involved, and agreed with the local authority that there was an amendment that should have been made. And I think there were changes in practice reflected that in future there should be a written copy of that agreement through the mediation service to avoid misunderstandings in future. So you'll see that the whole thrust of this is not just what you do, but it's how you do it. Regular communication is absolutely vital, and how always thinking, how do we learn lessons for the whole service going forward? So we've gone to page 18. You'll just see it sets out the timescales for each of the stages. The stage 1 complaint should be dealt with within 10 working days, but can be extended to 20. Stage 2, 25 working days, but can extend to 65. And stage 3, an acknowledgement within 2 days, and to be held the panel within 30 days. And 19 of the complaints received during the first and second quarter were dealt with under the social care statutory complaints process, and 1 was dealt with through the corporate process. If I just move on to compliments, because I think the example given around the stage 1 complaint is one I've already elucidated. So there were 38 compliments recorded. You'll actually see from the chart on page 19, at the top of page 19, Peter, the vast majority of the complaints were received by the child protection and court team. I'm not sure that that's solely that team received more complaints. I think they've just got better at acknowledging them and recording them. And I think that's a message, well, it's not, I think, I have been given that message to all services, because as we've said earlier in this committee, the complements are actually really important as well in terms of extending learning. And just to highlight some of the things that have been said. So the adoption plan process has not been without its challenges, but the social worker and advanced practitioner have been incredibly supportive and gone above and beyond. You've done a really brilliant job throughout our time working with you. You're a real credit to your team, and it's down to your efforts the situation's moving on so quickly. To X, thank you for supporting me and making my life better. So just so simple, but so important. Just to say thank you so much for your hard work. Things are better now. And then a final one, I remember seeing this myself, and it's a compliment to a family time facilitator who deals with contact arrangements. But on this occasion, they'd done some life story work to help a young child who'd been adopted understand their background. And their carer said, we received a life story book and it's wonderful, lots of pictures and great explanation. May God bless you for your lovely and passionate heart. Yeah, that's a really lovely compliment. So I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions on chat, Peter? Let's have a look. I've got chat now.
Councillor Sullivan.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Chairman. Julia. Very interesting.
You're breaking up.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling.
Sorry.
Pat, you're breaking up.
I can't help it. Can you hear me?
No.
No. Can you hear me now?
You break it up when you keep freezing.
I've gone. I'll come back.
Could you send the question through chat, Pat? No?
Oh, she's left the room. She's probably come back on. She's left the meeting, Chair.
Okay, come back in a minute. Just if I could comment, well, if Pat's got the opportunity to come back. On complaints, no one likes receiving complaints, but the most important thing about a complaint is how you deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's actually very pleasing, Julia, to see those comments. And as I said earlier, you know, 100 complaints is nothing compared to one good sort of like compliment, and the compliments far outweigh. And when you think what we've gone through over the last couple of quarters as well, certainly with schools, education, you know, PEPs and everything else, and personal educational plans for our special needs clientele and that. All I've been hearing as chair of this scrutiny through education are the good things. Very rarely have I received anything complaining about what we're doing in the Borough of Rochdale. And I think that message needs to go to all our officers and all staff to say, look, it's not gone unnoticed by the councillors of the borough, the good work they actually are doing, and certainly the head teachers and the staff in all the schools.
I'll take that message out to our staff. Thank you. And that will be recorded. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much. I'm looking at my fellow panelists here. I can't see any indications. One on chat.
Councillor Sultan Ali, Chair.
There we go. I've got you now, Sultan. Over to you, Sultan.
Councillor Ali, Chair. Councillor Sultan. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is more for information and sort of deal with the constituents better. The mediation service. What is it, and is it private? Do you have to pay for it, and is it costly?
Okay, thank you. The mediation service, I need to find out a little bit more information, but there is a formal requirement that you have a mediation service that sits alongside the team that develops and delivers the education, health and care plans. Families do not have to pay for it, so it's freely accessible, and they will advocate on their behalf or mediate on their behalf to try and reach a resolution where the family feels their views have been properly represented. So it's a positive service that all local authorities have to have that mediation service available.
Julia, I am aware of a case whereby the family have actually struggled to find out about the mediation service. You would have thought, you know, it'll be widely available, widely pointed out, etc. They kept hitting that it's a solicitor provided service, and they charge the earth for it. And I was flabbergasted that, you know, we've got neighbourhood mediation, etc., and all that sort of thing, but yet here in social services, where it's needed most with family that are having difficulties to access the service.
Right. Councillor, I think I've responded specifically to the mediation service in respect of special educational needs and
Right.
education, health and care plans. You are talking about a different kind of mediation service.
Yeah.
If you would like to email me after the meeting, I'm really happy to pick up that individual case and I'll look into it.
Thank you very much.
With pleasure.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sultan. Appreciate that. Nothing else on chat. Any indications on screen by hand?
Can't see anything, Chair. No.
Yeah, James? You're on mute, James.
Yes, please, if I may, Chair. And I know you've explained a bit about the letterbox thing, but can you just what happens? Is it that the real parent is sending a letter to the child?
That's it.
Okay.
So when a child is adopted,
Yes.
we know one of the most important things is that as the child grows, they understand their background and their history. And for children to continue to receive letters from a family member, if they so choose, you know, if the family member wants to keep in touch, which we encourage,
Really?
the letter would go through kind of a third party, literally like posting it through a letterbox. And we would consider the content of the letter and then forward it to the child in their adoptive placement. So we know through evidence that we gather over years that the more children know about their background and understand with compassion why their parents couldn't care for them, and that supports them to be well balanced and settled youngsters, enable them to, you know, grow as well as they can. So it is something we encourage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Julia. I believe John Hatley, Councillor.
Yeah, I think my question may have just been answered. It was about adoption. Well, go on. Supposing, say, somebody gets adopted, say, and they're only 2-3 months old or just after birth. And then when they get older, say 15, 16, and they want to know who the real parents were, and there's no idea, is there a body that helps to them identify or locate who the parents was?
There are, sorry, I found that a bit difficult to hear, but I think that you were saying about when they get older and want to find their parents, are there means of supporting
been
them?
Adopted just shortly after birth, basically.
Yeah.
And there's no idea who the real, and they suddenly find out when they're a teenager, and the adoptive parents sit them down, which is the right thing to do, and have that family chat over after tea, and they break the news to them, but they've no idea who the real parents was. Is there any help in them in tracking them down in case they want to see or want to know?
Yeah, there are systems in place to support older adopted young people to support them to identify their family, and they would. It's when they're kind of older adolescents, we'd look at how we supported them to do that. So there are systems in place.
Yeah, I mean, I can fully understand that the parents have adopted them. They may not want to engage, but they might have grandparents, nephews, nieces, even sisters and brothers that they don't know about. And that's the reason for my question. Thank you.
That's why it's really helpful having a third party engaging with their natural parents to elicit, would they welcome meeting with them? And as you say, there are often a whole family behind the mother and father. We have had 1 or 2 situations where curious teenagers have tracked down family members themselves through Facebook and social media. So that's a small number of situations where that's happened, and that's not always been a very happy set of circumstances because they've not done it. They've perhaps suddenly turned up out of the blue to their family members when they weren't expecting it, and caused some unsettlement for them in their adoptive families. But there are mechanisms to really positively support them in understanding more about families.
Okay, John.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, John. No other questions on chat. Any indication on screen? No.
Councillor Sullivan's back in the meeting,
I
Chair.
can see her, but are you with us now, Patricia?
Yes, but I don't think I am. Can you hear me?
You are breaking up and got a lot of echo backing there, I'm afraid.
Yeah, something's gone wrong.
No, you've totally gone again,
No,
Pat.
I can go out again. Just carry on.
Okay, if you want to send a question, could you send it via chat? Have you got that facility?
No,
No, you've gone again, Pat. Sorry about that, my love. Okay, we'll move on that one. Okay. I'm just looking at what we've got left here now. Have we gone through it all now, or is Andrea reporting on public health, or have I lost the plot?
Well, that's the next item, Chair. Now we're on to quarter. We'll be on to item 6 now, the quarterly performance.
That's it. Okay.
Third quarter information reports now, Chair.
Okay, that's great. And who's leading on that? Can I ask that question?
Would you like? I'll give Julia a breather so I can do adult care, children's and public health in this next report. So if I cover off adult care and public health, is that okay?
That'd be great.
Come in with children.
Julia gathers herself.
Thank you.
Did really well there, Julia.
Thanks,
I got away lightly. So yes, can everybody see the report? So do we need that presenting as well?
Well, I haven't got on my other laptop. It's frozen. I can't get mine up. That's why I asked for a shared screen.
It'd be appreciated, please.
Ah, right, okay. Peter,
Can you
are
do
you
shared
okay
screen
to share,
again, Peter?
or do you want me to do it?
Sorry about that, folks. 3 phones on the table. I don't know which one.
Tune. It's not me.
I'll pay a £10 fine.
Peter, are you able to share the report?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we move down to page 27 when you're able to share.
Yeah, yeah. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Not just share. It must be thinking about it.
Over there, Peter. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Great. So at the very bottom of page 27, just as a reminder for councillors and colleagues, the actions against our directorate plans are RAG-rated using red for where the action is not fully completed or not on track, amber where not fully completed and there is some slippage, green where it is action to be completed by the target date, so is on track, and purple where the action is not yet due for completion but is currently on track. So that was just a bit of a reminder. Peter, if you're able to scroll down to 4.1, please. That just gives the overview of the actions within the Adult Social Care Directorate Plan, and this plan covers both the commissioning elements of adult social care and the operational elements of adult social care. So what you'll see there for Q3 is quite a nice even split between green, amber and purple, which is quite pleasing to see given the challenges that we've all had in dealing with the pandemic. So we are all still on track in terms of delivery against the directorate plan.
Peter, could just
we scroll down to 4.2.
Yeah, we need to scroll up a bit.
Yes, sorry. Apologies.
We're on 3.2.
Peter, are you able to bring us down? Peter, can you scroll us down to 4.1 and then 4.2?
Can you see that now?
Yeah, we're at 3.2.
Right.
I think we've just explained that. If we can go to the next section.
Yeah, if we scroll down to 4.1 and 4.2.
Technology
Seems like we're
is wonderful
struggling
when it's
with
working.
internet connections tonight, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is that not showing? Because it's down on 30 on my screen. It's not.
No, it's not scrolling. We're on page 27. Perhaps if you just talk through it then, Tracy, if you wouldn't mind.
So I just talk through it. I'll continue to talk through.
Please.
So 4.2 in the report covers off the actions that aren't fully complete and the due dates have passed. We are still working on many of these actions, but we have experienced some slippage in the directorate plan given the pandemic response and in particular the winter period with the hospital pressures as well. However, in relation to those amber actions, we are still working towards a new approach for joint management of health and social care around those with complex issues, autism and learning difficulties. So that is still underway. We are developing and indeed implementing, since this report was written, the progressive fee structure for how we pay for our clients across the spectrum of care. And colleagues may be aware that the fee structure for adult social care provision was approved at ICB last month. So that brings in a new banding system for care providers, which was welcomed. Our secondary and specialist services for people with LD and autism is under review at the moment, and we are seeking to bring integration between health and social care elements of learning disability and autism care much closer together. So we're working on that one closely with our mental health provider and social care colleagues. And the commissioning programme structure is being updated to ensure that the themes that we're delivering against the accommodation strategy are still meaningful given the impacts of the pandemic. If we consider key elements to draw to your attention that have been achieved in Q3, we now have 2 fully co-located integrated neighbourhood teams, so that's health and social care together in one place, and that is Brook House and Globe House, and we should have a further 2 neighbourhood teams co-located. One in the Phoenix Centre will have been delayed slightly, but we are looking by the end of this financial year to have those in place, with the remaining 2 in the early part of 2021-22 financial year. We also now have quarterly Dementia Partnership Board meetings which have been established, and there's a project plan being brought together with key objectives around a new strategy for the Dementia Partnership Board, so that's really good progress. We've brought forward 2 new schemes which colleagues on this board will be aware of and have probably heard about on a number of occasions. Sherwell Flats, which is for supported living for those with learning disabilities in Haywood, and River Beale, which is the one which is near the Milnrow tram stop, previously the Lady Barn. They're now open. River Beale is now open. Future scheme Sherwell Flats is underway. What we have developed, working really closely with our strategic housing colleagues, Health and Care, is a single accommodation panel, which is really trying to make it much more straightforward in terms of how we assess and allocate accommodation for those with care needs. So that's a significant development as well. And the final element is the accommodation with support strategy, which I'm sure councillors will appreciate. We've had some delays in publishing specific commissioning statements by neighbourhood this year, given the pandemic response, but we are, rest assured, underway with that one. Whilst I've got the floor, I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to skip the children's services section, which Julia will come back to, and pick up on public health, which, if you've got your reports to hand, is the bottom of page 30 and starts at 4.13 in the report. All items in the public health plan are purple at present, so there is some work happening on those, but as I'm sure colleagues will appreciate, the majority of the public health work at present is managing the outbreak and the vaccination programme, which is being brought forward. But just to give some highlights on some of the developments that were in the development plan, we were intending to be looking at a new system architecture and prevention review of neighbourhoods, adult care, the place teams, which colleagues may be aware of, and that is underway in terms of what is our prevention offer to the public, but it's just taken us a little bit longer to work through that given the pandemic response. In terms of tobacco addiction, we have started to expand our pharmacy offer, and we now have 10 pharmacies working really closely with us on the stop smoking services and pathways. And the other key piece of work that I think will be forefront in people's minds from public health is the vaccination programme, which has now been fully mobilised. And I'm sure councillors will be aware that we're working our way through the priority cohorts, and we're now on the cohorts 5 to 9 in the vaccination programme. So I think we're able to share that we've reached 40,000 residents in those priority cohorts so far with their vaccinations, which is really fantastic news for the borough and for the residents. And I think that's it for me on the performance reports. So I'll hand over for any questions.
Stacey, got a few questions here on chat. Let's have a look. Obviously, Pat's having problems. Chemo great, Pat. Okay, I haven't got one yet. Oh no. John McGrath, question, please. John?
Yeah, John McGrath's got one.
Yes, John?
Can you hear me? Because I've also been having problems with my internet, like everybody else. You mentioned about specialist services for LD and autism and integrated them. Just for clarity, are you thinking of a service that will cover the whole spectrum of learning disability and autism? Are they going to be separate services?
No, so I'm talking about the adult services for learning disabilities and autism, and we have services that are provided through adult social care, and then we also have clinical and mental health services that are provided through our mental health provider for adults with those conditions. And at present, they're not integrated in the same way as our health and care services for other adults in the borough. So it's the next phase of our plan, if you like, to start to bring those teams that are working both with health services and social care provision much closer together and wrapping that care around the individual rather than it depending on whether it's a health or a care. So it is much more about wrapping care around the individual rather than being seen as two completely separate entities.
Thank you.
Does that help with,
yeah,
with
it
your
does.
question?
That's useful. But I suppose the second part of my question is the joining up of autism and learning disability. You know, because within health, I understand.
Yeah,
so I'm just.
Yeah.
Sorry. So is the vision that it will be joined up, or will it be separate?
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
But is the vision that
it is? I mean, from a clinical perspective. Apologies, councillor. Carry on.
We lost you, Tracy. Then carry on, Tracy.
Did you lose? I think we're all struggling, aren't we, a little bit?
Yeah.
From a clinical perspective, they tend to treat learning disability and autism as two separate entities. We don't often do that in social care. We start with the person. So it is just the next phase of our plan of work in terms of how we start to integrate the health and the social care teams much more closely around those pathways. It could well be a piece of work that Oerview and Scrutiny would like to have brought to the group with more information around that plan of work, which we'd be happy to do for you.
That'd be good. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, John.
Thank you, Tracy.
Just one question, if I may, Tracy.
Sorry, could you just repeat that, because so I can get a note of that. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
We'll bring forward an item on the learning disability and autism integration for Oerview and Scrutiny, so that councillors can be aware of the plan.
Thank you, Peter.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Just one question, Tracy. Obviously, I sat on the Manchester Scrutiny committees. Could you tell me if the amalgamation is still on target for health and social care? Are we still on target, you know, with this COVID-19 crisis we're in?
Yes, we are, and councillors may be aware that there was a white paper published recently around integration, and I've got it to the left of me, entitled "Integration and Innovation Working Together." So the white paper has been brought forward by Parliament and is out at present, so we can ensure that that's shared with colleagues in Oerview and Scrutiny with the minutes, if you would like.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tracy.
We have done some joint sessions with ICB and the LCO.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's just nice to have that minuted in the Scrutiny group. Thank you, Tracy, for that input. Okay. Are we now on agenda item 7, Peter?
Chair, do you just want me to briefly do Children's Services Directorate Plan?
Remiss of me.
I'm that little bit in the middle of the sandwich.
I'm sorry about that, Julia.
That's with pleasure. I'll just do it briefly.
Go on,
so in terms of the Venn diagram, you'll see that the bulk of it's purple. It's not a Venn diagram at all, is it? The circle with a wedge in it. The bulk of it's purple, so that indicates that we're on track to deliver and complete those actions. So that's 89%. And there's one action that's actually completed. So in terms of the Q3 summary, just 4 areas particularly to highlight. So as part of the action to provide sufficient school places for all children within the borough, there has been progress on the development of the 2 sites. So in Middleton, the Edgar Wood Academy, planned to open in September 2022, is going to have an early opening at Hopwood Hall in September 21 this year, subject to the DFE's confirmation before the National Offer Day. And then in the Pennines, the Star Academy Trust has been appointed, and they're going to self-deliver with assistance from the DFE. There's an informal indication that the September 22 delivery is unlikely, and it may be now 2023. Another area in terms of early help and early years services, there is now an integrated offer of that family services model, with children's centres and locality teams merging and becoming coterminous and delivering a whole family approach. So everything is there on a locality footprint. In the Pennine locality, this actually includes further work with the place team and considering a whole system children and adults approach for families living in the Pennine area. And that approach is being developed through the Pennine Cooperative Place Partnership. And then a final thing, we have been delivering parenting offers throughout the pandemic, and we're delivering a blended approach with some virtual and some face-to-face. And we're just finding some real success, and some families feel more comfortable with the virtual approach to the parenting offer. Something called, it sounds a lot of acronyms, digitalisation of ASQ. So ASQ is the ages and stages assessments, and that went live, that kind of IT system, in September 2020 for Rochdale and Bury, and that's to deliver improved quality and integrated of those age-related assessments. We're now looking at extending that model. And then the final area is just talking about the workforce. lot of activity in respect of stabilising the workforce, particularly during the COVID pandemic, and just adopting a very principle-led approach and a high level of communication with staff. I have to say, led by the director, Gail Hopper, who's done some magnificent briefings, email briefings to the whole staff team across children's services, which have been so informative and engage people in thinking about their own mental health and well-being. They've been informative, and staff have felt better informed than ever before. One area where we've been stepping up and doing increased amounts of work, which has resulted in training that's going to be delivered to the whole workforce in children's services about anti-racism. Some of our colleagues were really seriously impacted with the following the death of George Floyd, and we've been doing lots of focus group work with colleagues from the Black and minority ethnic community. We continue to look at recruitment approaches and continue to just looking at how those can keep being refreshed to recruit more staff, and constantly wanting to look at how staff contribute to service-wide development. So we've just finished a very successful practice fortnight that's engaged over 1,000 staff in different seminars and sessions, majority held virtually. And I did one session and 94 people attended. You'd never get that if you were just getting people in a room. So there have been some consequential benefits of doing things in a different way. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Julia. I've got one from John. Councillor John Hatley.
Yeah, just a quick one, really. You mentioned the Pennines. Now, I know we're likely to get the primary school before the secondary school in Littleborough now, but do we have any idea when they're going to start on the secondary school which is being built in Littleborough, when we're actually going to see some form of development?
Right, Councillor, that's an area I need to take advice from my colleagues. So I'll do that tomorrow and email you. Would you like me to email the whole committee, Chair?
Well, it might be advisable, yeah, because Irene's also in the Pennines.
I believe so, yeah.
Thank you.
So roughly the start date for the secondary school provision in the Pennines, in Littleborough, sorry.
And also a time scale of when we're likely to see being ready for taking its first intake, really.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julia, could I answer it now? That it's Faye.
Oh, Faye, please do. Sorry,
Faye,
that's
yes.
so helpful. Thank you, Faye.
Yeah, the Star Secondary School in Littleborough. We are hoping imminently that things will start moving. Essentially, they've got the pre-application meeting with our planning team tomorrow. Oh. So we are really hoping that things will start moving through this summer. I think, as Julia said, that it is looking likely that 2023 is going to be the opening date, and essentially Wardle Academy have put on additional places at Wardle for the intake this year and for 2022. So 2023 in that respect does now suit us. The DFE won't actually give a fixed date of opening until the planning permission is approved effectively for the school. So
basically, once the planning permission is approved, if we're asked by residents when is the school likely to be ready, we can say once the plan's been approved, we can say we've been advised it's going to be around sometime in 2023.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for intervening on that one, Faye. It saves a lot of emails flying around.
I'm delighted. Thank you.
Okay, I have no further questions on that, Julia, and fellow committee members. I don't see any indications of any more questions. Nothing on chat. With that being the case, that closes the chat. Are you with us now, Peter?
Yes, I'm back now, Chair. Yeah.
Thank
Sorry
you,
about that. I've
Peter.
got a really poor internet connection tonight. It's.
I think we all have. I think we're all struggling.
Yeah.
Mine's down on the BT connection, so not a problem. I believe that's the end of agenda item 6, unless you're going to correct me, committee members. Okay. And I'm looking at agenda item